In this video, I'm going to discuss coding visual data. That may be images that you took while you're out in the field, video that you captured, or other things that showed the place that you were studying, or maybe even while people were using items, the visual interaction with design itself. So this approach requires you to develop codes or tags that you'll place on images and then start to count up what kinds of tags came up most often so you can arrive at a conclusion. We're going to do a very basic example here based on some work that I did at Walt Disney World teaching experience design Disney. Let's talk about how this works. So I have set up some images here from a recent trip here in InDesign, just to very basically show you how this process can work. You can print these images off yourself, and or you can print your images off and you can tag them manually, or you can do a digital process like this. There's no wrong answer, just whatever works for your process best. The key is you have to code stuff so you can count up those codes and see what happened most often. So let's say my study here is about details at Walt Disney World. I'm studying what kind of details showed up. So I have a coding scheme here. First off, a 5-point scheme of happy to sad, which doesn't really work for this example because I am looking at instances that have different variations. I'm not looking at if they're a happy thing or a sad thing. We're just going to assume they're all pretty happy things. They're at Disney, right? But then I can create codes here that are very specific. And that's what we're going to do here as level of detail. So this is Anna and Elsa's meet and greet. And I noticed that it has this snowflake. I'm going to place this as lighting is a detail. So notice Disney used a lighting detail that's pretty extreme here in this candelabra. Also, I'm going to do woodworking. So that's a woodwork detail. That's how they did detail. And then also this code right here also is a, let's see, character, this is a character tie-in, or let's see, movie topic, let's say it that way, because that movie was about snow and ice, and this is a snowflake. And so there's a tie-in to the topic of the movie or the content of the movie. So that's good enough. Let's move on. So when I was staying at Port Orleans Riverside, I saw, we got back to our room, and sure enough, cast members had placed all of our stuffies in a beautiful little row and ready for bed. So this is an example of a service detail. Ooh, now that I think about that, this is, ooh, yeah, I want to add this. I'm going to go back. I'm going to say this is a interior design detail. There we go. So this is an interior design detail. This is a service design detail. As you're coding, it's not uncommon for you to add codes to images or add codes even to transcripts and then go back and go, hey, I found one earlier. I need to go back and add that tag to other things that I read earlier or that I reviewed because I wasn't thinking that way when I first saw those. That's what I did here. So this is a service design, and I added this as an interior design. So okay, and this is, I'm going to call this customized. Because what they did was they took my stuff and customized it. They actually added my stuff, made my stuff a decoration instead of adding their own. Okay, attention detail, maybe the bedpost materials. That certainly seems like, actually that's industrial. Industrial design was what they did there in those materials. Okay, and I could actually tag that as being woodwork as well. For this example, we'll move on. I'm gonna grab one of these, copy it, and go down to my next example. Okay, so this one. Definitely, this is a lighting detail here. And in this one, they created a whole environment. This is interior design. This was an entire environment. Notice that they get a trash can here. I think that's kind of funny. Lots of details. I'm going to do this one as small details. So they have, or small objects. Let's try it that way. So this is an example of lots of small objects. I'm going to tag it that way because I see that all over this one. And it seems like there's a story element here. That's good enough for me right now. Okay, Monsters, Inc. Lots of details. Okay, this image right here, this Business Shriek movie, this Business Shriek magazine was actually in one of the movies in like the credits. I've got a movie topic. I'm going to do movie tie-in because this is Snowflakes. It pulls straight from the movie. I'm going to do that here too. This is an example of movie tie-in. I saw another one that was there. Lost Eye, Lassing, Missing, Monsters Inc. Glee Club. These are all kind of funny, fang sharpening. This is like bringing it into the real world. Let's tag that. Into the real world. So this is an example of like they just made what would have been in the movie come into the real world and made me like part of that as if I'm actually in Monsters Inc. So that's kind of cool. Here's Monsters Inc. Thank you for the tour of your facility. And they have like kids that have signed it. All of this is like into the real world stuff. This is really cool. There's the menu for the week, bowling league tryouts. So a lot of into the real world. This is an into the real world example. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So this is an Adventureland. Check this out. Attention to detail here where Disney Imagineers are actually repairing a building, but they wrapped it with a wrap that looks like the building. Let's say that's a concealment. There we go. Concealment detail. I'm going to tag that as concealment in a way that was attention to detail. Are the people doing anything that's interesting? No. Lots of lighting. Check out those lamps. Those are very period lamps. So lighting is a big one. Oop, I didn't code this one back here. This one is, what is that? Probably interior design. I'm guessing, could be industrial. This is definitely an architecture. Also, they use typography here. So typography deserves a code. So in these examples, notice how I'm making the codes as I go. So it's possible to code data in a very general way, happy to sad. That's a very hunch level, basic kind of standard preset coding scheme. What we're doing here is we're making our own codes up as we go. It requires us to be critical thinkers and carefully evaluate, what is that? I'm going to tag that this. And what is that? I'm going to tag it that. I'm going to create a code. Paying attention to each instance, carefully analyzing what it means, and then coding will allow you to generate a code book, a book of all these unique codes. Then you can count up and see what came up over and over again. Notice though, my big research question for this is, what are the details, or how does Disney, what are examples that Disney Imagineering, Disney Parks have captured details or have implemented details to create magic? Let's go back to my examples again. So typography, lighting, architecture. Here's another typography. That's a concealment. Yeah, okay. Plants. This may be my first one where we have plants also. So these plants are specifically tropical, and that matches really well with Adventureland's theme. So I'm going to tag those as plants. Let's keep going. Okay, here's an example from Fantasyland, New Fantasyland. And this one's funny. What they've done is they've taken something very functional and they've had a little bit of fun with it, make it look like farmers. I'm going to tag this as, no, this is directional. Ooh, wayfinding. So wayfinding, tell me it's a bathroom. That's a better code. I like wayfinding better. This might be movie tie-in. Notice I'm using a code I had before. And this one is maybe unexpected. This doesn't necessarily pull me into the environment or pull me into the story, because they've just really taken the symbols that are bathroom signs and then added to them. But I didn't expect that, right? This is a combination that's a bit of a surprise, and certainly accessible. So there is a detail here that they have put in place that still increases or improves accessibility. So if I were to go back through this, this is, I gotta go back. This is, could be interior, industrial, architecture. I'm gonna leave it as industrial because this is an object, but it's not used. I'm going to say this is part of architecture with wayfinding or environmental signage. So part of this process then is going back and counting up these codes. How many times did these come up? Now this is a very small sample size of just a few instances and a few pictures. But if I took about 50 or 80 pictures and if I coded each one, then I might find that a few of these started to come up over and over again. For example, if I counted up small objects is a good example here. Small objects in this environment, in interior design, and lighting. So lighting came up a bunch of times in my small sample. If I did a full study, I might come to the conclusion, okay, Disney uses lighting a ton. Oh my gosh. Of all the codes that I compiled, lighting was the one that showed up the most. And small objects was the second most out of all the codes. Then I might be able to say, seems like lighting is a really great way to create environments or to get people to believe that they're there. Maybe as a designer, I should focus on lighting because that's really effective for my observations. Or small objects. If I want to create a believable environment, I should bring a lot of small objects into my sets or to build them in places so it feels more like a real environment. Those small objects made a big difference. So notice, visual data and coding visual data is creating your own codes, putting those in spots, and then counting up and coming to a conclusion. And in this case, the conclusion would be small objects and interior design are great ways that are detail-oriented to create believable environments. As you look over your own visual data, create those codes, tag those instances. They may be when people interact with stuff that you have pictures, or just basic visual examples, and then count them up. See what you find. Those will lead to hunches that can tell you how to design in the future. All right, see you around.